Keller Williams. Good morning, Keller Williams. Welcome to Monday Motivation. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and that you put some of the practices from our first session of the one thing in place. We have started the one thing. My cover looks different because I took the jacket off. It's still the same book by Gary Keller, and it's a focus book. So if you haven't read it with us, it's okay. I think you'll still get some great nuggets. In our first session, we talked about going small to go big, and a focus question to help us get started, and being like a postage stamp. Stick to one thing until you get there, right? Which sometimes is difficult. So we talked about the domino run, just focusing on the one domino to make all the other dominoes fall, and that you could actually stack up dominoes that are 50% higher than the one before to have a huge impact when you focus in extreme, right? So I'm letting Adrian in. Good morning, Adrian. So we're going to start on page 17 and go through page 31. And the title of this section is Success Leaves Clues. Success Leaves Clues. And I've written down at the top of the page the focus question that we learned last week that we could ask ourselves about all types of things that we are wanting to accomplish. It's such a good drill down. So do you guys remember what the question was? I've got it written down here, but I was wondering if you guys here on the screen or those of you watching, type it in the comments. What's the focus question that Gary discovered when he was coaching that it ended up being the most powerful thing to get people to move forward that he was talking to about their goals? Do you guys remember? I have a chat down here. Let's see what that is. Okay, thank you, Rachel, that you can hear me. All right, so I was going to give you guys a shot. I noticed that, Adrian, you're unmuted. That the question, since no one has answered it yet, is what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? It's a very powerful thing. On the first page, it says of section 3, it is those who concentrate on but one thing at a time who advance in this world. And it talks about some products and services that had extraordinary success because they had one product or one service that they're most known for, and it makes them the most money. So they mentioned KFC and Colonel Sanders and his secret chicken recipe, and then the Adolf Coors from the Coors Company. And then he had one product made in a single brewery, so he focused one product, right? Microprocessors from Intel's net revenue, and then Starbucks, right? They focus on that one thing. And there's a lot of businesses that are that way. Google, it says it had extraordinary results because they focused on one thing, but their revenue came from the result of that. What is Google's one thing that they focused on? You guys know? Reach for it. Google's one thing. What do you guys do? What are you doing when you pop onto Google? You search. Google's one thing is search. They perfected search. And because of that, selling advertising is their key source of revenue because they solely focused on the search part of that. So he asked the question, some of you are Star Wars fans. What's the one Star Wars one things, movies or merchandise?
Merchandise.
Yeah, it says, I mean, if you guessed merchandise, you'd be right. And you'd also be wrong. So I found that interesting. You're right and you're wrong. It's like a combination, and we see, and it mentions that could be what happens with the one thing. So they focused on movies, but they make their most revenue from merchandise, right? So, and then it says at the bottom, where I sit, movies are the one thing because they make the toys and the products possible. So there's that that thought where I went back from last week is like when this book first came out, it was just like everybody was thinking you had to figure out the meaning of life, okay? And your one thing question. And I think because Gary is such a reflective person and digs deep and searches, you see his brain in this and how simplistic it is. And sometimes it's not easy. It said sometimes our one things might even shift, they may change. So the answer isn't always clear, but it does make finding it. Doesn't make finding the answer any less important. So it is important to focus on it because competitive forces, innovation, all the things may affect what your one thing looks like, but you're always in search of it. So you're always asking that focus question that we talked about. You might want to write it down somewhere and look at it this week and ask yourself that when you get up every day, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. Apple had a lot of things going on. They were constantly moving from Macs to iMacs to iTunes. I don't know about you guys. I remember having an iPod Shuffle, right? And they moved through that, jockeying for the position at the head of the product line. The golden gadget was always in the limelight. Their idea was to get you into the Apple family. So if you had an iPhone, you might decide to get a Mac, and you're in that Apple family that way. So when you get one thing, you begin to see business world differently. And if your company doesn't know what its one thing is, then the company's one thing is to find out. I liked that. I underlined that. So what did you guys think about that section and the one thing? Did it make you think of other businesses or other entities that focused on one thing? And did it make you think about your one thing this week, this month, this year, for the next 5 years? Yes, no, it's all skate. Are you open to using the focusing question this week? I think it's just getting started on finding the one thing. If you don't have your one thing, then your one thing is to find the one thing. I like how it segued into the one thing is a dominant theme that shows up in different ways, and that sometimes it's a person. The one thing is one person, and it mentions Walt Disney because we know who that is, and that he had a passion for art and was a cartoonist for his school newspaper, and he wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist in a bigger scale, but couldn't get a job. And his brother Roy was his one person that made an impact, and he got him a job at an art studio, and he learned animation there. And so when Walt was young, his one person was Roy. And then actually Sam Walton had one person. I thought that was very interesting. It was his father-in-law who had not given him a loan for $20,000. He would have never started his first retail business, which was not Walmart. It was Ben Franklin franchise. And if you've read any of Sam Walton, you know, there's a lot of people that are successful that weren't actually successful the very first time, but they had a series of things that they went through. They didn't give up. And he also secretly paid a landlord to provide a pivotal expansion lease that was able to help Sam Walton be successful. And Albert Einstein had a one person, had a mentor. So no one is self-made is the thing at the very last sentence on this page. No one is self-made. Not any of us. We've all had one person that if we had met them someplace, or maybe there's more than one person during different phases of your life, you wouldn't be where you are. I thought it's a really good reflective chapter on that, and to see how other people that we know that focused on one thing, but now they've got huge, extraordinary success, had a person in their life that was instrumental. One passion and one skill. It also talks about successful people have an intense emotion or one learned ability that shines, and defining that and driving them more than anything else, a passion. Often the line between passion and skill can be blurry. So it said you must be single-minded, drive for the one thing on which you have decided. So I like this section because early on, in thinking about people that are successful and how they got there, it's sequentially, not overnight, time on task over time. This one mentioned Pat Matthews, one of America's great impressionist painters, and he loved painting. He turned it into a skill, and by simply painting one painting a day, right? One painting a day, he just did it every single day. That's that practice, right? Because I'm sure that not every one of those paintings were fabulous, but through the doing of that every single day, the masterpiece showed up. Just like John Williams, which is a great composer of a lot of movie scores, wrote something every single day. Jerry Seinfeld, I remember, and probably later in this book he'll be mentioned, he wrote one joke every single day, even if it was terrible, he wrote it every single day. And so you'll do that, the 66-day challenge on creating that habit. John Maxwell found some sort of piece of inspiration every single day and filed it away. And as he did that, he was able to gather content to write all the successful books he's had. So it was a small thing that he did every day, that John Williams did every day, that Pat Matthews did every day, to get to explore that passion and to get to greatness. It's that domino, right? That's a good example of a domino run and how it became huge. Chicken Soup for the Soul author is also an example of that, Jack Canfield, and him going over and over and over and never stopping. So any comments about that passion and skill and focusing on things that you're interested in that could come into some extraordinary results later? You guys are quiet this morning. You're just taking it all in, right? Right? All right, so there is one life that we can live, and this chapter talks about Bill Gates. Whether you love him or don't love him, he was he's a great example of an extraordinary life. So his one passion in high school was computers. It led him to develop one skill, computer programming. And then he met one person, remember it talked about that was pivotal for his success. And that person was Paul Allen, gave him his first job, and he became his partner in forming Microsoft in the future. And this happened as the result of one letter sent to one person. So when high school, Paul Allen, and then they gave the first job, and they formed Microsoft because they sent one letter to one person, and his name was Ed Roberts. There's another key to their success, and it changed their lives forever because he gave them a shot for one computer, the Altair 8800. Has anybody ever heard of that? Anyway, this was their big break. They only needed one shot, and Microsoft began its life to do one thing: develop and sell basic interpreters for the Altair 8800. So that was what their program was. And it made him the richest man in the world for 15 straight years, just focusing on his passion and taking chances, right? Mailing that letter, meeting people, those opportunities. And so when he retired from Microsoft, he chose one person to replace him, and that's Steve Ballmer. And he met him in college. And he was Microsoft's 30th employee and first business manager. And it didn't end there, because Bill and his wife decided they wanted to give back to the world. And they used kind of that one thing, that theme that we're going through, to decide how to do that, because they wanted to impact the world. And that's big, right? Impacting the world. And they found that they could do it by doing something, just focusing on one thing. What's the biggest one thing they could do to impact the world in a huge way? Do you guys remember what that is? What did he say that they did? Bueller? Bueller? What did they do? They focused on getting vaccines out, because they wanted to stamp out infectious diseases that cause death in places that were struggling. And their global health program was the name of that. but they were like, okay, global health program, what's the most impactful thing? Vaccines. And so they made them inexpensively, and they're just that singular line of questioning, how could we make a big impact by focusing on this one thing, help them to make that as their priority. So they're proof of the power of one thing. So it says the doors to the world have been flung open wide, and the view that's available is staggering. So the unintended consequence of abundance is that we are bombarded with more information and choices in a day than our ancestors received in a lifetime. Isn't that true? Do you guys ever feel overwhelmed with all the things and the information? And so we're harried and we're hurried. And having sense that we're attempting too much and accomplishing too little haunts our days. Have you guys ever felt like that?
Yep.
Yes, I think I feel an amen out there from y'all. Amen. So this is how can we make the best decisions possible? How can we experience life and have an extraordinary level and never look back? And that is living the one thing. So he mentions Curly again, remember, from the movie, that says he knew what all successful people know. The one thing sits at the heart of success and is the starting point for achieving extraordinary results. And it's a big idea about success wrapped into a disarmingly simple package. Explaining it is easy, and buying into it can be hard. I mean, I'm already feeling that, and we're just on page 24. How about you guys? We want to do this, right? We want to be simple. We want to be focused. We want to have extraordinary life and extraordinary results. But you know what's holding us back? What's holding us back? My allergies. It's holding me back. Sorry. I went as far as I could before I had to get a Kleenex. What's holding us back? Well, I think it's this exactly the same thing that the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book started and led with. Mindset. Gary knows, right? It's our mindset. He talks to so many people. Our thoughts and our fears will get in our way, and we have to start with our mindset first. So there's a lot of junk we're listening to, right? There's the lies of success. And when we banish those, we will be able to open our mind to the one thing. So part one of the book is about the lies that we've been told and that we might believe. And I like that he starts this chapter talking about words of the year. Did you guys know that in 2003, which was a long time ago, Merriam-Webster began analyzing searches on their online dictionary to determine what the word of the year was. Now, I don't know if they still do this, but Gary's mentioned the word of the year for 2003, 4, 5, and 6, because there was a shift from what those words were that was kind of cool in 2006. And the first word of the year was democracy in 2003. And people were wanting to really look at that. It was on the heels of the invasion of Iraq, and they wanted to know about it. That was the first word of the year that they published. And then the second one was blog. I remember somebody telling me, because I was in real estate at that time, I had got my license the year before, oh, blogging is the big new thing. You need to learn how to do that, right? So I don't know if you remember that being a big deal. So everybody's like, okay, what is blog? What does blog mean? So that was the word of the year that year. We needed to know what it was. So 2005 was integrity, right? So there was probably some things going on with some political scandals that year. So integrity was a huge search. And then in 2006, this word, truthiness, came to play, the word of the year. And there was a lot of marketing around that, because that came from Stephen Colbert, and he coined that phrase, that truth comes from your gut, not book. Because isn't it true that everything on the internet is fact? Well, if it's on the internet, we believe it. So I think at this point in time, it's kind of a information age driven Comedy Central joke that there's rants on talk shows, there's editorialist blogging. And so if we feel like it in our gut that it's probably true, then it is. And he mentioned a couple of things, and I've heard these. Toss a frog into a pot of hot water and it will jump right back out. But if you put that frog in there and it's just lukewarm and you start heating that up, they're just going to boil to death. Have any of you guys heard that? I have. And guess what it says? It's a lie. It's a very truthy lie, but it's a lie. So we are like, oh, I think that makes sense. That could make sense. So I think it's true. Right? And then there's one that says, have you ever heard that a fish stinks from the head down? I've never tried that. I don't know if you have, smelling a fish from the head down, and it's not true. It's just a fish tail that turns out to be fishy, is what he says. So there's some things that we're like, okay, well, that might seem truthy. And isn't it true? Truthy. Isn't it true that these myths and misunderstandings that's thrown around that they start sounding like truth because we've heard them so many times. So here are some important truthies that you might think are true that aren't, that you could have said to yourself, and I've said to myself. Remember, I always start and lead with Sally Jean. This book helps me too. I have just too much that has to be done. I'll get more done by doing things at the same time. I need to be more disciplined person. And I know I've said that. I should be able to do what I want whenever I want. I need more balance in my life. Maybe I shouldn't dream so big. So if you say those things often enough, they become your truth. They're very truthy to you. And but they are the lies that keep you from living the one thing and living a bigger life. So the next sections that we're going to go through, we're going to talk about the 6 lies that stand between you and success. And the first one is everything matters equally. The second one is multitasking. Have you ever had anyone say, I'm the best multitasker? I might have said that. I might have worn that as a badge. I have a certificate, right? A disciplined life, willpower is always on will call. A balanced life and big is bad. Those are the lies that we're going to discuss before we get into more ways for us to focus and live a bigger life. So these lies are driving us the wrong way. So if we're going to maximize our potential, we're going to have to make sure we put the lies to bed. So this next journey, we're going to talk about these lies and we're going to myth bust them. And we're going to go ahead and get right in our mind, get our mindset prepared to start living the one thing every week. And I think that when we do that, we're all going to get better, right? When we start the journey of a habit, we're not perfect right out the gate. It's time on task over time. And our goal is to stay around an environment where others are going the journey as well. We're talking about the journey because when we do that, we all get better together because we feel that tribe of people working for the common goal. I like this quote from Mark Twain. I had to read it a couple of times. So here it is. And we're going to see if you guys have any comments before we sign off. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And that comes to that truthiness part, right? It's what you know for sure. It just ain't so. So what truthies are you saying to yourself? What are you believing that's keeping you from focusing? Let's think about those this week, and also think about the focus question. This starting today, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? What is that for you today on Monday? How are we going to get started with that? Think about that. And do you guys have, I lost Kelly because Kelly may be helping with Jessica this morning. Clarice, Rachel, Adrian, thanks for being here with me. I love it when somebody is in the room with me, and I know we have quite a few people watching us on Facebook Live. Do you have any parting comments as we get started for the week or some encouragement for someone watching?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Rachel.
Sorry, I was driving, so I couldn't unmute earlier, but I have put the focusing question as the screensaver on my phone
I love it.
because I am very easily distracted. So having that there just is a constant reminder, like, hey, focus on your one thing. So just if, someone else might find that helpful too.
Yes, it is. I think when you put your book on, I've had this book for a while, Rachel. Okay. I've been through a workshop around this book. It is an easy concept. It's not easy to always live it. So the journey is for real, right? And I think having it in front of you, not putting it on a shelf and having a really smart bookshelf is key. So I love that you've got that as something in your face that's going to help you move along this week and remember it as an affirmation. Adrienne, you were going to say something. What do you got for me today?
I believe that if we do the one thing early in the morning, we have more energy, then we've got the rest of the day and you feel accomplished.
I love that. I love that. And that's the energy plan for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book as well. Are y'all seeing some kind of tie-ins here from the concepts here from what he wrote in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent? You'll also notice some things from Quantum Leap from a lot of his research. So yes, I love that. It's kind of like eat the frog, right? Do the things that are hard first and focus on the domino, become passionate about it. Thank you for contributing that. I love it. I love it. So I know, Adrienne, you had asked me the pages. I was 17 through pages 31. And I'm sorry I didn't check that chat until now. And then we're going to start on page 32 next week, and we're going to talk about everything matters equally.
Just a minute.
Okay. And for those of you watching, if you're not getting this from me, let me know. I try to put the copy of what we're doing on Facebook closed group at least on Sunday with the pages. And also I email it out to your email address that we have here at the office. So if you're not getting that, maybe look in your spam for it. It'll say Monday Motivation Zoom link. The Zoom link is on there. If you want to be here on the screen, you don't have to put your video on. I do like when you have a chat with me. I appreciate you being on the screen with me. It makes me feel loved, that my high eye is fed. So thank you so much. And I'd love to know that you're going through this with us and that you're going to be one thing certified by the end, right? So pop on your comments on Facebook Live. Let us know you're there, that you're watching with us. If you viewed this, it helps me know who's out there going the journey with us. And I know that you're going to have a fantastic Monday. Hey, going through this book's helped me to start looking more seriously about my one thing. And so I'm going to ask you guys, my one thing here is to be able to share the passion and the stuff I love about Keller Williams and grow this office and help you grow. So who do I need to know that you know that's talent that would be a great fit? Because when someone comes in to our family, they bring things that we don't have. They get things that they ain't got. I sound very Mark Twainish because I said ain't. So it makes us better. Together we achieve more. And I love that. So think about that this week. Think about your focus question for the one thing. And I look forward to coming back and talking about busting those lies out next week. All right, guys. See y'all soon.
Thank you.